All right, here we are. Welcome, Jason.
What's up, man?
Hello. So, welcome everybody. This is Jason Sue. Um, Jason, why don't you give a brief intro of yourself so people know who you are?
Yeah, I am a guy who's been in poker basically my whole life. Started playing in 2002 when I was 18 and just obsessed with it immediately. So long life and career as a pro poker player. Pretty much did everything from starting out low, mid to high stakes, live, online, cash games, tournaments, mixed games, limit, no limit, PLO. I've played it all, done it all. And yeah, so about 10 years ago, I was playing heads up, no limit cash and started coaching, found that I really loved it. And so at each step of the way since then, after Black Friday, was coaching people all the way through when I switched to playing live poker. And kind of midway through that stretch, I started realizing that I really loved talking about, mindset, presence, performance with my students. And so got the idea to put it all into a book, which came out right around when COVID started. So about 2.5 years ago, I published my book, Poker with Presence. And I didn't know how many people were going to read it. I was hoping maybe I'd sell like 100 copies or something, mostly to my friends. But it really took off and really resonated with people. And almost right away, people were hitting me up for coaching on the topic of how to be more present in poker and in life. And so realized pretty quickly that if I wanted to, I could just go full-time coaching. And so now, I'm pretty much just doing that full-time all day, every day. And I'm now crossed over onto the rec player side of things. So that's kind of what my life looks like now. And that's kind of how I got
Nice.
here. Yeah.
I'm sure that's a nice transition in some ways. I've heard of some pros becoming recreationals and they're like, it just feels in some sense nicer. Like,
It is super nice. I'm really fortunate to, be making a nice salary doing this thing that I had no idea was going to be possible. And one impact it's had at the poker table is I like literally do not care if I win or lose, like at all anymore, which is it's a new feeling.
mhm.
In terms of money, I do care on the competitive side, but as far as like the money side, I don't
Yeah.
really care at all. And it's pretty freeing and relaxing. And actually had my second largest score ever earlier this year out in Calgary. So, and I remember firing all those bullets and really not caring at all what was going to happen. And I
Congrats,
really
man. That's awesome.
played some great poker that week. So happy
Yeah,
about
it's
it. Yeah.
it's funny how that can happen. How like you switch to being recreational, and it's like it is. I've heard that it's kind of seems like that switch is what makes even some of the stuff you're talking about like come online a bit more. Like because suddenly now the stakes are lower, and it not financially but emotionally. That it suddenly is. Yeah, it just can be kind of easier to do. So awesome. So we'll just dive right in based on that intro. The first question I have here that I would love to talk more about is, yeah, what is presence? Your book is called Poker with Presence. I think that can be it's easy to breeze past something like that. But yeah, when you say presence, what does that mean?
I'd say the best way I could describe it is feeling connected to yourself at all points of your experience, whatever you're doing, whether you're playing poker, whether you're living your life, whether with your family, your spouse, whoever. Do you feel like you're really here in this moment, really taking it all in? Do you really feel like you are available to access all the knowledge, all the wisdom you have? Do you
Mm.
feel like you're really feeling your feelings and being with them and not pushing them away? So are you really just letting the experience that you have happen as opposed to fighting and resisting it? And so to me, that's what presence looks like and feels like. And
Yeah.
to me, that's what kind of brings forth our best performance at the table, our best version of ourselves in life, pretty much all of it.
Yeah, that's a what would you say to someone though who says like, well, yeah, like of course, because I can feel like there can be an easy misunderstanding here because I really resonate with what you're saying. But imagine the skeptic of being like, well, like of course I'm here, like of course I'm like I feel like I'm paying attention to what I'm doing, and I feel like why this seems obvious to me. Like how can I not be present, if you will? What would you sort of say to that person?
I would say that there's a difference in the quality of your experience when you really feel present, whereas when you're trying to be present,
Mm,
those are two completely different things. So one is operating out of your head and trying to think your way through it and use logic to get through it and use effort to get through it.
mm,
And the other one is just something that you feel and it feels easy and natural and
mm,
clear and not rushed and not like you're needing to make anything happen.
mm.
And so those two different qualities of experiences are what I think you can use to tell if am I really here or am I just thinking and trying to be here, right? Those are two completely different things.
Yeah, yeah. So this actually sort of leads into the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is as so I coach people as well, and a lot of the coaching that I do does end up being oriented around a lot of the sort of mental states people find themselves in when studying, when playing, and the where we're at when we're playing really matters, right? Because poker is a game of decision making. It's a game of how you're whatever process, whatever happens, resulting in an action. Those actions need to whoever makes the better actions is the one who's gonna quote unquote succeed. But I find there to be a sort of paradox here between the more emphasis I find I'm putting on with my students performing better in any way, right? Or playing better, like the goal orientation of do this so to play better seems to be the very thing that sometimes creates some of the bad mental habits, for lack of a better word, that people get hung up on. And so I try to emphasize more just like living well as opposed to playing well, right? Like what play in such a way, like I posted a video prior on Instagram where I said like you should remember that poker takes place in the context of your life. It's not you don't do things in your life to play poker better. You hopefully you're playing poker to because it's a facet of trying to live a more rich and fulfilled life. But at the same time, like I am a poker coach, right? So it's like I am, I have some sort of clear goal orientation in mind towards having you succeed. Do you find this paradox existing when you do the work that you do, and how do you go about circumventing it if you see that it's there?
It's no issue for me because I don't coach strategy anymore. So, so yeah, I mean when I did, it was definitely a thing. And what I would say is that like, yeah, of course you need to know what to do in terms of the mechanics of the game and how to play certain hands. But if you're having the experience of your coach is needing to tell you the same thing, or you keep making the same mistake over and over and over, it's not a knowledge issue anymore
Yeah.
at that point, right? Because after the first time, or hopefully the first couple of times, you recognize and you review your hand, you're like, okay, this is the problem. I need to like kind of not do this so much. I see it now. Then if you're doing it again, it's not a knowledge issue. You know what you're supposed to do. The problem is that you're not putting yourself in the feeling state, in the place to where you're able to access it when it's actually time to use it.
Yeah.
Right. And so that is exactly what you said. It's like, yeah, poker is part of the equation. Understanding the technical stuff is very important. But if you're not in the space to where you can actually use it in real time, what's the point, right? So,
Yeah.
how present are you when you're learning?
Yeah.
Are you just halfway here when you're learning? Are you just going through the motions? Because if the state you're in when you're learning is different from the state you're in when you're playing, it's two different versions of yourself. So one version of yourself knows what to do, the other one
Mm.
can't access it, right? So same deal, right? If you don't take learning seriously enough, yeah. And if you're not really like in that space to take it in fully, it's not going to translate. Also, if you allow yourself to freak out and get super tense and you can't relax when you're playing, you're not going to be able to access what you learned when you were learning. So it's kind
Yeah.
of both sides.
Yeah. So all these are leading really well into each of the. So how important would you place acceptance of how you're feeling in the process that you're talking about? Like the role of just accepting the way that you currently feel. Do you talk about that much with your students? And yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of like 100%, I would say.
Yeah.
You can't really go, I would say like nothing's more important than that, or yeah, basically, because if you try to resist the experience that you're having, then you're just screwed, because now you're using up all this energy to manage your experience, to try and tell yourself that something is true, that it's not, right? Like I would say the number one thing that I have to overcome with most people when we start is they've been indoctrinated with this idea of like, you can use logic to overcome the emotions
Yeah.
that you're feeling, right? So that's been the pervading wisdom in the poker world that everybody's been trying to use. Like, just be logical, and you'll be able to overcome your emotions. But that has led to a whole lot of people not really being in touch with their feelings.
Yeah.
It's been great for my business, but for people who want to be, a high performer in poker, you need to be somebody who acknowledges what you're feeling when you're feeling it. So you need to know how to identify it, and you need to accept that it's happening, and know that just because you're feeling scared is not bad. That's not a bad thing. Just because you're feeling angry is not in itself a bad thing. It's the thought you have, it's the judgment you have from societal conditioning about those emotions that is making you feel like you don't want to have this experience. But if you just let yourself feel the feeling, it's actually going to be totally fine, and you accept that it's happening. You can actually use that to feel more clarity about where you're at, use that to connect more in the moment, and use that to actually play better.
Yeah.
And so it's actually the reverse of what everyone's been doing. And we need to go more towards it, and learn how to process it in a healthy way quickly in the moment. And that's how we're going to get through, all the emotions.
Yeah, I mean, there's a really popular, I think, psychological, like pop psychology myth that like they paint this story of like what humans are is the pinnacle of evolution in terms of like the logic trumping. Like you have the triune brain, false picture of the brain where it's like you have like the lizard brain, the leopard brain, the human brain, and like, which isn't, none of that's true, but it paints this story of like rationale trumping emotion. Like that is the grand story, and that I think that's very integrated into our culture. So just like you're saying, it becomes very easy for people to craft the story of like the way you overcome emotion is with logic, with thinking. Like you overthink it. That is the way that you move through when emotion is pulling you in a direction you feel like you don't want to go. But just speaking to people, because I think where there can be confusion is, so let's speak practically about like a situation you might find yourself in, right? Like you're getting, someone places a bet in a spot and it makes you really uncomfortable. And the sort of paradox I have found with some people is just like you said, right? Like when you're in a certain mindset, when you're studying and you feel clear, you feel like you understand things, you get what you should do, you get what you shouldn't do or whatever. And then you get into a spot and now you feel uncomfortable, right? The story of like you're a different person in each of these moments, and it's easy to start saying like, well, you should be this person. You should be the study version of yourself. And what I find is people then, with that being said, right, they start trying to impose that on themselves. Like, okay, I'm feeling a way I didn't feel when I was studying. How do I get back to that study version of myself? And so let's say someone is dealing with something. They're thinking that, like, I want to get back to feeling that way. What would you sort of say to them?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'd say that it's not about like getting back to that exact state. It's more about getting back to the level of acceptance that you have in that state, right? So when you're studying, you have a certain level of acceptance of like, yeah, this is just how I'm feeling. It's cool. We're all good here, right? And then when you're playing, all of a sudden, if you have a lack of acceptance of how you're feeling, I'm uncomfortable. I don't like this. I don't like feeling like this. I need to, figure this out. Then that's different, right? But if the level of acceptance that you have in this moment of playing, of like, yeah, ooh, this is comfort. I'm just gonna sit with this for a second and be with it and feel it and let it happen. That level of acceptance can match the level of acceptance you have when you're just relaxed and studying. And that's what we're looking for. We're not looking for the exact same feeling, right? We're looking for the same level of just like acceptance or presence, as you call it, the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just bringing this back to like what we were talking about too, like the logic thing, I think it helps for people to know that like the thing, in my view, you can tell me what you think of this, that drives behavior when you are feeling some way you don't want to feel is the not wanting to feel it, right? Like a bet gets placed on you. Someone places a bet and it makes you uncomfortable. In my view, the reason mistakes get made there is because you're trying to do something to get rid of this feeling, right? Like I feel X, I don't like it, I don't want it. So let me get rid of it. Like let me this, if I do this, I won't feel this way. You know, if I just, and so for a big thing that I see when I coach people is they take the action that leads to the ending of the hand the fastest, right? They fold or they just like jam. You find people who like jam all in. They just, you know, in really crazy spots because they don't like the way that it feels. And they know jamming gives the hand a chance to end. It's like this might end this situation. And yeah, I think once you realize the closer you get, like you were saying before, the closer you get to the feeling, the more you can just sort of be with it. It loses its behavioral implications. Like it loses the implication of like I must do X because I feel Y. Yeah. Do you agree with that sort of picture of the world?
I love it. That's super deep. Because I mean, if you look how much people will alter their behavior to avoid feeling their feelings, yeah, like what you said, yeah, they'll go all in quickly. They'll overfold certain spots. They will even start to play earlier streets differently because they sense that they could end up starting to feel. So even before they have the feeling itself, the fear of that feeling coming alters their strategy, alters their behavior. And you look at how much EV gets lost in that process over time. It's completely insane, right? But more in the big picture, if you think about, well, how does this actually translate to who you are? Well, if you do this in poker over and over and over, well, guess what? You're also going to be the person who is going to immediately order drink, immediately go have to smoke something up, immediately eat something, immediately get on the dating app and start swiping as soon as you feel any emotions that you're uncomfortable with, right? So poker is an amazing training ground to start to break through that pattern, break through that habit. And so you can start to learn how to do this in your grind when you're playing. You don't even have to put emphasis on this in your life. It's just going to start to happen, right? And so a lot of people, you know, you can go one way or another. Some clients, they come to me and we literally never talk about their experience at the poker table once. They just want to talk about stuff in their life. And over time, they'll tell me that their poker game starts improving in their performance, that they didn't know that there was more room for it. It's just like, oh, wow, I didn't think I could perform any better, but I am. Other people, all we talk about is their performance at the poker table, but they'll say stuff to me like, oh, by the way, I quit cigarettes. I'm like, what? I didn't even know you were a smoker. So stuff awesome. Like that is, you know, it goes both ways, but it doesn't matter where you focus it on. It just matters that you're interested in becoming a person who is going to face and feel your emotions as they come and be with them and change the way that you relate to them to one that's like super healthy.
Yeah, and that's sort of the beauty of the game of poker. Like, I think it can help to change the story when you're in poker. It's beautiful that you're a part of this game that provides such good incentives for you to really face these facts about yourself, right? Like, and in such a demonstrable way can show you the consequences of the way you're responding to certain situations. And honestly, in a way that the stakes are lower. Because losing a hand of poker or even going on never being a winning poker player, like consistently losing at poker, that's nothing compared to the cost of not being present with your spouse, with your children, with your family, right? Like, wanting to be reactive or pushing away the feeling of when someone says something hurtful to you, so you lash out at them and you damage a relationship forever. And all of these sorts of real world consequences to not being accepting the way that you feel and being present with it. Poker is this beautiful training ground that provides really demonstrable proof and like just shows you, and in a way that also is just like, it's very incentivizing. It motivates us to become better pictures of ourselves, and I really love that fact about poker. You know, it's a really cool part of the game. Along with this, I I wanted to ask what your thoughts are, because I've been thinking about this more. What do you think about the responsibility, for lack of a better word, of the elite poker crowd to create a culture of acceptance, and something else I want to talk about, of value? Because I find one of the things that really drives people as well, and really hurts people's emotional well-being in their relationship with poker, is their sense that, like, okay, I am a poker player, and then this hand went poorly. That means I am not a good poker player. And because this is so enshrined in my sense of value, my sense of status and meaning and purpose, I now feel like I am valued less. And I have found that I believe in what I've seen, that the way professional poker players kind of put out information and stories of their own success, and honestly, even stories of their own mental game, can create a culture of, like, of striving for people, where they're trying to achieve that, really. And basically I'll just put all that to you. What do you think about, like, the responsibility of, like, even people like myself, or just people who are having an impact on the way people view poker, to sort of create a culture more like that?
That's a great question, because if I've worked with people who are CEOs of large companies, and if when he asks me that, it's like, okay, yeah, this matters a lot, right? Like, how you show up definitely matters a lot in terms of how your employees are going to start to show up as well, right? Because the culture trickles down.
Yeah.
And so definitely, like, the way that the high stakes players carry themselves, and the way that the messages they put out obviously trickle down, whether it's the way that they're playing a hand, like all of a sudden you'll see everybody just starts copying certain lines that they see people do at high stakes, or the way that they show up in terms of how they deal with their emotions. You're probably going to see a lot of people modeling it. So I would say that in the last 10, 15 years, one of the badges of honor of the high rollers and the high stakes people is that they don't show any emotion after winning big pots, losing big pots. Like, there's no, like, celebration. It's not cool to, like, crack a smile after you win a huge pot deep in a tournament. And so that's something that's kind of filtered down. So yeah, I'd say that, like, whatever the people at the top do in any world has an impact on the people who are looking up to them, right? As far as their responsibility, I don't know. Like, I think that everybody has different reasons for being in the game, and some people in poker definitely love the idea of helping other people, right? Of setting an example, of enriching other people's lives. Other people really couldn't care less, right? And they're just in it for themselves. I just want as much money and glory as I can get, and I'll step on anybody I can to get there as fast as possible. I'd say that in poker there are no agreements around, like, what we owe to anyone, and so I say it's pretty much just a world where everyone's for themselves. And so some people choose to lead and share and help grow things in a certain way, others don't. I'm okay with all of it personally. I don't think that anybody who gets anywhere in poker has any responsibility to do something to make the game better. I appreciate it when they do, but the nature of the game is such that the thing that we love about it so much is that we don't owe anybody anything. We don't have to put in hours if we don't want to. We can go wherever we want. We can do whatever we want to do. So that's the spirit of the game, and so I'm cool with that. So I would say, if you're looking for this type of thing, and you're not at the top of the game, and you do want people to look up to, you'll have to kind of narrow your focus to the people whose voices that you resonate with, and kind of tune out the noise on the other side.
I think there is a little bit of a unique thing to poker, in the sense that let's imagine you're a world-class football player, right? And people want to sort of casually get involved in playing football in, like, some club or something like that. I think there's a less of a direct line to the likelihood that leads to your own, like, negative emotional state. Whereas poker is so readily available to so many people that I think it's a little bit of a different environment, and much more conducive, honestly, to spreading misery and suffering. Like, it's much easier for people to casually get involved in poker, and then get involved in, like, the sort of status game of wanting to be a professional poker player, without really seeing all of the ins and outs of how that can hurt you. And naturally, like, I don't, yeah, you're right. Of course, like, people have different reasons. I just think it's something we should talk about more as a community, of the fact that this has very wide reach. It's easy for people to get involved in. It's not like getting involved in so many other sports and games where, like, it requires the exact right equipment and time and you know, whatever, to get involved in with it, or even skill. You can just sign on to a poker site and just start playing. Yeah. And for me, I find the more I talk with more recreational semi-pro players, I just have noticed the negative emotional impacts of the status game of poker, if poker players feeling like their value comes from wanting to be the next, you know, name your player. And yeah, just, I don't know. I guess I personally feel like that's just a bug, not a feature of the environment that we're in.
So what I'll say to you is that, like, it sounds like it's important for you to partake in those discussions and spread the word and provide full transparency about what the poker experience looks like, and to maybe inspire some people to get out of the rat race of the status of, like, am I a pro? Am I awesome? Am I at this level? And so what I would say is, like, man, I hope that you know, take that and own that for yourself, of like, yeah, I feel responsible because it's important to me to start having more of these discussions and to get the word out in a way that feels good to you. Right. And so it's like each person gets to determine their own level of what they feel responsible for. And then it's just a matter of, like, are you going to live up to that or not?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I resonate with that a lot. I want to ask, how much would you say, like, meditation specifically has played a role in crafting some of the things that you say, or do you recommend meditation as a practice to people? What would you say about that?
So yeah, people ask me this a lot, and the answer is kind of like varied, because on a personal level, I meditate every day when I wake up. It's just what I've been doing for years now. But I don't necessarily recommend it to everybody, because what I say is that, like, some people it doesn't really work for them, right? They have a lot of trouble sustaining it. They don't really feel any different. And so what I say is, for each person, find the thing that helps you to feel better, to feel more like it's easy to be yourself, right? So whatever you need to do each day to make that happen, some consistency in doing that would be fantastic. It would really benefit your life a lot. Is it meditation specifically? Maybe not. For a lot of people it is. For a lot of people it's not. It could just be like going for a walk. It could just be cooking, you know, yourself something that you really like. It could be having a conversation with your spouse that feels meaningful to you, or checking in with somebody. It could be writing. It could be literally anything in the world. But the only thing I care about is, does it make you feel more connected to yourself? Does it make you feel more easy and relaxed inside you, and ready to, like, do what you want to do today, right? So I think could be, could not, maybe probably not, but
all those things sound like a, you know, depending on how you define what is meditation, right?
Exactly.
Like, you define meditation as something that is practice in being present and being at the moment, with connecting with what's happening. And if you define that in that way, whatever sustains your practice, right? Like, if you find it extremely difficult to sit still and to do that for, you know, 10, 20 minutes a day, then what you're not being present, so you're not practicing that, right? You're just sitting there being agitated, and like, that's not sustaining a practice of being present. At the same time, I will say that some people, in my experience, some people also do some of the things you just listed as a means of avoidance, right? As a means of not actually being present, and not, like, they go on walks and they're actually doing the same thing as they do as when they get on their phone, right? They're trying to fix the way they're feeling and feel a better way, and as opposed to engaging with the way that they're feeling. And I agree. Whatever sustains, whatever practice, like, really.
It literally does not matter what you do. It only matters how you do it. And why, I guess I would say, just why you're doing it. Like, what is your motivation here? Having some intention for what you'd like to create out of it, for sure helps.
So that's honestly most of the questions that I had wrote down for you, so we can get into some of the questions that people posted and wanted to ask.
Yeah, let's do it.
So first, you guys can feel free to, like, we have the chat up, so if you want to post in chat some of the questions you have, feel free. The first one actually is the one Kevin posted on Twitter. So I posted a video talking about downswings, and one of the things that I said in that video was even the language of downswing. It positions it positions the narrative where you're viewing the moment as something that is consequential of all the moments that have led up to that, right? Like this exists only as a part of this grander causal like story where I am down, like I had this money, I no longer have this money. And I was saying, really, all that you have is right now is always your starting point. Like right now, what you have is really all you have, like whether you're up or down or anything like that. And so Kevin was curious if you agreed that the language of downswing or heater positions us in the past, and if that's harmful to your life as a poker player.
I mean, it certainly does. I mean, language certainly does position you in the past. As to whether it's harmful, that's kind of on an individual case by case basis. Sure. What I would say is that's kind of a starting point. It's like, okay, this is what's been happening, and that's kind of just everyone's way of acknowledging what's been happening. But right. But let's dig deeper and let's talk about, well, how do you feel about that? Right. Because say, oh, I'm on a downswing, there's certain emotions that are implied, but if you don't actually acknowledge that, oh, and this is, I'm kind of bummed about it, I'm feeling sad, angry, scared about it, or I've been winning a ton and I feel really happy and also scared about it, that's going to end, right? These are all natural human emotions that come from winning and losing. It's endless, or just breaking even also provides other emotions as well. And so, that's, step one. If you try to language your way out of it as well and say like, okay, this is all I have, to me that's a bit of a logic move of like, well, let's be logical about it. I'm not actually on a downswing because today is the first day of the rest of my life. If that's your way of like trying to push the feelings down and saying that I don't need to actually spend some time with it, I think you're going to run into some problems eventually. It can work for a while, but eventually that's not going to work anymore. And so really the practice is to, it's like, acknowledge this is what's been happening. I've been getting crushed. Let me just sit with all the emotions about it, process it, be with it. And let's use that as more fuel to kind of feel some aliveness around where I want to take this next. Right. Same with the happiness that comes with winning. Yeah.
That's really good. That's really good distinction. Cause I think it's easy, especially it's good to me to remind myself too. Cause I think there is an experiential component, right, to the words that I might be using when describing things. And I think it's easy because you have to like traverse the distance between you and someone you're talking to with conceptual language and like stuff. It's easy to ignore the potential negative consequences from where I'm standing. Cause from my experience of engaging with this, right, it doesn't feel like a logic out. But it's easy because that is the natural move for people when dealing with things, for them to take that on board as like, you're right, there's just now, and just like try to muscle themselves into this, ignoring the downswing, like not facing how what the now is makes them feel. And no, that's a really good distinction. There's a really good analogy I've heard from, Buddhism, which is like the map is not the territory, so like where it's like whenever you describe something with words that has like what is being prompted to is like an experiential thing, the words are the map, but the territory is like what it actually feels like. It's easy to say like, you don't want to take my words and just like think, okay, these words are the experience, there's a big gap between those.
I love that. And it's like, language is amazing. It's probably the most amazing thing we've ever invented, but it can never fully 100% capture the experience that we're having. So to feel something 100% is a step beyond anything you could ever describe in words, whether to yourself or somebody else. At a certain point, you can't get the word to match exactly how you feel. It doesn't exist because there's only one feeling. And so that's why, like, one thing that I've said to people is like, if you're one of those people who loves motivational quotes, great, right? Fantastic. People have said amazing things that are very inspiring over the years, but if you can't tap into the feeling that person was feeling, or some version of it when they said it, it's not going to do anything. You're just repeating an empty mantra that doesn't actually inspire you, doesn't actually spark, anything different. And so again, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's not, what you do, it's how you do it. It's all about, am I connected to that feeling with whatever I'm doing?
Yeah, that's really good. I really like that. All right, let's look at some of these other ones. So a lot of these are very straightforward and practical. So what would be your advice for a player that when he's down some money, always wants to win it back at higher stakes? That's a question we have. What would your advice for that player?
Well, that's it's like you are so deep into not wanting to have the experience you're having right now.
Yeah.
That you are, I would say knowingly, like assuming this person's asking the question, they know this is a problem, right?
Yeah,
they're not like bragging that like I always So if you're asking this question, that this is a problematic thing, and you're willing to do this and put yourself into like the worst feeling of like, okay, you take the shot at higher stakes and then you lose, and that's going to be way worse, but that's the end point where you run out of money, presumably, right? So I'm assuming when people do this, like they do it until the balance is empty. Is that
I mean, presumably, yeah. I mean, I guess I mean, if you're
jumping
to higher,
clarification on the exact situation, but I assume that's how it goes.
Yeah.
Right. So presumably, the only way that how to actually let go and face the experience of losing is when you literally can't play anymore.
Yeah.
Right. So look at it this way: like you're headed towards that feeling, anyways. You're hurtling yourself in that direction. But this glimmer of hope that you won't have to feel what you feel now is enough to like allow you to take this chance.
Yeah.
Right? And so, you're the one who gets to decide, like, is this how I want to conduct myself? Is this who I really want to be? Or do I want to be somebody who is able to actually like take a loss sometimes? Or and so this is a decision that you just have to make with yourself. Is just like, am I okay with being this person? Like, is this who I really want to be?
Yeah.
And if it is, that's fine. You get to do what you want to do with your money, right? But if you're asking for advice about how to make this stop, that's the first thing. Is like you tell yourself, you decide, like, I don't want it to be this way anymore. Okay. If you haven't done that yet, that's definitely the first step. Step 2, as you start losing, notice what it feels like, and can you be with that? And just start to make it an intention to like increase your capacity to feel what you're feeling when you're losing, right? And that over time will help you to snap out of it and to make this decision to like, you know what, I'm just going to quit instead, or I'm just going to keep playing at the same stakes instead because I actually enjoy the game. But without that first decision of like, you look in the mirror and you say, I don't want to be this anymore. I don't want to be this person who can't take a minor amount of agitation. That's not who I am.
Yeah.
Then nothing is going to happen after that.
Yeah, and I think the only thing I would add is how you and you can tell me what you think of this, but how you relate after you have made this mistake, right? So like once you were losing money and you just jumped stakes, lit all your money on fire. Now to meet that moment, right? Sometimes we don't have the training or the life experience that's going to lead us to meet the moments when the impulse arises, right? So like when the impulse arises to jump to higher stakes, what all that's going to happen there is whatever you've conditioned your mind to do. And it can be very difficult in the moment of a strong emotional urge to not follow it. But then once after that's happened and things have calmed down a little, to meet that moment and to not fall. I think what often happens is like a sort of shame cycle where you feel stupid, you feel, you judge yourself, and you're really harsh on yourself, and you're like, why did I do that? And then and that type of behavior is actually can be what makes the awareness in the prior moment really difficult. You don't want to face what it is you're doing. You don't want to acknowledge what's happening. So I think the only thing I would add is just once that mistake's been made, to be really kind to yourself and to really meet yourself and just be like, look, that happened. And honestly, every mistake we ever make in these moments is just some part of ourselves trying to protect ourselves, right? Yeah. And to just recognize that that's okay, that's what was happening, and that in reality there was just nothing to be protected from. Like you were fine the whole time, you know. And that meeting your feelings, I think, can really connect you with that.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well said. A strong base of self-love is the foundation of a good relationship to anything. Yeah. Right. So it's like, yeah, I did that. Do I still love myself? Yeah. Yes. And if you can feel that, then the next time, you know, you're starting from a higher place. So it's a journey.
Absolutely. Let's see what else we got here. We got a lot going on in chat. Let me see. There's a couple things that people have questioned that are similar, which are basically how do you deal with the feeling that's similar to what people have called like ranked anxiety in video games. So in video games, once you reach a certain rank, there's like an anxiety from dropping down rank, and some people want to avoid playing when they feel like they're doing better because they know a downswing's around the corner. What would be your advice to people who sort of like, maybe cut a month early because they calculate their wins based on month and they had a good month, so they just like don't play at all for the rest of the month or something like that?
Yeah. So what I strongly believe in, and I've seen this a lot, is that regret comes from not the decisions you make, but they come from the level of presence and connection you feel in the moment you make them. So in this situation, what you have here is two competing feelings, right? So one, you're very, very happy that I have a high rank, or I've been on a big upswing. I've been winning a lot of money. My bankroll is pretty flush. Two, also fear of like, what if I were to keep playing, what if I lose my ranking? What if I lose all this money that I've won, right? And so these are two things that we're not used to, or a lot of people are not used to feeling simultaneously, right? Yeah. So if you can get in touch with both of them at the same time, you acknowledge and feel them both. Oh, I'm very, very happy. Yes, let's let that in. I'm very, very scared as well about this. And you let both be true. I feel happy. I feel scared. I feel happy. I feel scared. I'm in it together. Now I'm letting all of that kind of happen inside me. Breathe with that a little bit, feel it. And it's like, okay, well now I feel pretty present because I've acknowledged everything that's happening. Yeah. So quite often some people are only acknowledging one side or the other. I feel very, very happy about this, or I'm scared I'm going to lose. So mostly the fear would be the one kicking in that would prevent people from continuing to play, right? So I'm only feeling scared. I'm feeling scared. But you're missing this part of like, well, I'll celebrate and feel really good and enjoy the emotion of happiness from what I've just accomplished too. Well, if we can mix those two together, well, now that is the true experience that you're having internally, right? Now you've acknowledged it. You've found like, this is actually what's happening. It's both. Yeah. And so from here, you make the choice, right? It doesn't matter if you choose to continue or not continue, but as long as you are actually completely present when you make that decision, you'll be happy with it, right? So that way you choose to play and you win. You choose to play and you lose, it doesn't matter because you'll just be okay with whatever's going to come going forward. But if you make your decision pushing all the feelings down and not being connected, if you win, you're not going to enjoy it as much as you thought you would. If you lose, you're going to be like, I knew I shouldn't have played. Right. It's always that thing. So how you'll feel later isn't going to depend on the results. How you'll feel later will depend on how you felt when you make the decision. Same deal. If you choose not to play, and you're not feeling connected to yourself when you make that decision, the whole time you're not playing, you're gonna be like, should I have played? Should I be playing? Second guessing. But if you feel that connection to everything and you decide not to play, you just be chill and like, yeah, I'm pretty happy with this choice to not play.
Yeah. And this actually makes me want to bring up something which I think also can be easily overlooked, which is like the presence with positive feelings too. I think it's easy to forget how we condition our relationship to positive feelings heavily actually impacts our relationship to negative feelings. Like when you're just chasing the good feelings, often the way we respond to bad feelings is from us not recognizing that when we're feeling something good and when we're not being present with it because we're waiting for when it goes away. Like we're just like trying to cling onto this thing and hold it close and like never let it go. And it's easy in good times to forget to still be present and just to be with what you're feeling in such a way that you're not looking around the corner for when it leaves you. And one thing somebody asked here in chat, which was feelings are a byproduct of thoughts, right? If you didn't think about being 12 buy-ins below EV in a session, then you wouldn't have feelings about it. What are your thoughts on that?
I actually think it's the reverse. I think that the way that you feel impacts the thoughts that come through your brain. And so the way that I experience it is that if I'm feeling agitated and tense and stressed out, well, now I'm going to have a lot of thoughts that are agitated and tense and stressed out. If I'm feeling relaxed and calm and easy, then it tends to be like either very relaxed and easy thoughts or no thoughts at all, and just kind of going about my day. That's kind of what I experience most of the time these days is not very much thought at all. And so it's not like because if you go about it the other way and you say, your thoughts impact the way that you feel, then what you're actually trying to say is that I can change the way that I feel just because I want to. And that is not how the human system works. We feel the way we feel and we have no control over it. You can't just say like, don't be sad, right? That's like literally the worst advice anyone ever gives when somebody's feeling like sad, right? It's like, oh, don't be sad. That literally like does nothing. And actually that elicits anger. You're like, don't tell me how to feel, right? So that's like, don't tell me how to feel. Because we feel what we feel. So the feeling impacts the thought. The thought cannot change the feeling. If it could, nobody would ever tilt in poker, right? Because everybody would just be like, okay, like I'm just gonna be positive. I'm just gonna think positive, and then everybody would start playing well. So if you want proof of this, look no further than what happens every day at the poker table.
Yeah, and I think this can even run deeper in the sense that we also don't really have control over some of our thoughts, though. And like you can even be present with just the fact that thoughts are coming into your head completely without your control. But even from the purely like neuroscientific basis, we know that like your emotions are like this categorical like image of what all these subconscious things are viewing the situation to be, right? Even things from like how hungry am I to like how much sleep did I have to how much danger am I in, like all of these subconscious things are being evaluated and the situation is trying to be understood, and then like your brain's trying to understand some goal orientation you have and then just creates a feeling for you. It's not like I thought it's really sad. It's like, I'm not going to see my friend again, and then suddenly I'm sad. It's like the situation was made salient to your brain. Your brain created sadness for you to motivate you probably to do something, and then now you're having thoughts interpreting that sadness. I think is a much more accurate picture of what's happening there. So let's see. Jason, what's your advice for feeling like self-worth depends too much on your poker results, even after having success? Is there anything you'd say beyond just being more well-rounded in life off the tables?
I wouldn't say it's about well-rounded or balanced, because if this is the dynamic you create of like, no matter what I do, it's not good enough in poker, you'll create the same dynamic everywhere else. Like even if you find a relationship and it's like, okay, now I'm more well-rounded, or I'm going to start taking up other activities, you will create that same dynamic of like, whatever I do, it feels like I'm not enough. And so if you want to cut to the core of it, it really is down to a self-practice of like, self-love. Do I just genuinely love everything, every aspect of my experience that I'm creating for myself? Do I love myself not for any specific reason, not because I've done anything, but just because I'm me, right? And if you can start to set that as an intention of like, this is what I want, this is how I want to feel, of like, no matter what I do, whether I succeed, whether I fail, I love myself, and I can lean into that and hold on to that no matter what, then everything will start to shift, right? So your relationship to poker will start to feel different. You'll start to be able to enjoy the wins more, and the losses won't sting as much because they won't be like a reflection of like, am I good enough, right?
Yeah.
So when you're looking through the lens of everything is like, am I good enough? Then everything is going to start to look like it could possibly be a trap for you. But start to really like build that base of like, yeah, I'm going to be somebody who loves myself
Yeah.
genuinely, just because I'm me, no other reason.
Yeah.
Then everything will level up.
Yeah. I think it can be hard for people too. One of the things that, again, on like some of the retreats I've been on, when you do what's called like a metta practice, which is like a practice of compassion and love. It's funny, if you, in certain Eastern countries, the practice is always basically supposed to be one where you start with the easiest object, the easiest thing to feel good about. And in most Eastern countries and most parts of India and Asia, they start with themselves. That's like the easiest starting point. But in Western societies, that often is the most difficult starting point. That we find ourselves. So there was a funny moment where someone asked the Dalai Lama, like, what do you do if you don't believe yourself to have value? And it's a funny, you can watch this question get asked. It's on YouTube. The translation had to go back and forth like 6 times because the Dalai Lama didn't understand. Which is what do you mean you don't? Like, I don't understand not having self-value. But because of this, one thing I would say that can actually help is actually, if you find it really difficult to make yourself the object of self-love, take someone else in your life and practice loving them. A friend you know who plays poker, or someone else you deeply care about, and try to focus on loving them unconditionally and connect with that feeling of like when someone who experiences something similar to you, like sometimes it can be easier as to imagine someone going through the same thing we're going through and caring for them, and then slowly walk that into yourself also, I think can be a good practice. I've known some people who just can't. They just don't know how to love themselves, and it's another thing I would say that's pragmatic you could try is also try to care about a prior version of yourself. Imagine yourself from 5 years ago or some version of yourself that's not here in this moment. And again, just start slowly walking that up until you can love what it is you're going through right now. Because I know it can be very difficult for people to care for themselves. Thoughts on any of that?
Love it. I recommend all of those things that you just said.
Yeah.
Right? Like yeah, if you can't access that point, there is something that you do love just for what it is. And so tap into that feeling and then start to set the intention of, I'm going to start to direct that feeling towards me.
Yeah. The big thing too is to recognize, and just think about this, that this is something worth doing. I think it's easy to just sort of throw in the towel with the way we feel towards ourselves, and some part of our self-hatred almost feels like earned or deserved, I think that's very easy. And just to know that like none of that is true. I just can't say that enough. Like, I really hope that people playing who like judge themselves just know that like there's nothing in you not deserving of love for yourself, and you don't deserve that. But
yeah, it's never too late, right? And in any moment, no matter how poorly you feel, you do have the capacity to feel some love, because you're human. Again, that's one of the perks of being human is that we have endless supply of love inside of us.
Yeah. Awesome. Let me scroll through this. This guy's saying, is imposter syndrome a real thing? Why do I feel like a fraud with a 6+, I'm assuming big blind per 100 win rate over a large sample? This sounds lame, but how do I work up the confidence to make a life career change to pro poker player? And other people have upvoted it, so.
Cool. Imposter syndrome. I wrote a thread about this on Twitter. I don't remember what I wrote, so I can't recite it word for word, but I can tell you what I think right now in this moment, which is, it comes back to a lot of the things that we've said, right? Is like, how do you operate on a day-to-day basis, when you're studying, when you're thinking about the game, when you're starting to play your sessions? How do you feel when you're coming into it, right? Can you connect with this feeling of appreciation, gratitude for what you're doing for yourself, or do you kind of crack the whip and drive yourself and motivate yourself from this place of fear and doubt and like, I have to prove something? So if you're always operating from this mode of I have to prove myself, it literally doesn't matter how much you win. You're always going to feel like you have to prove yourself, because that is the kind of lens that you're operating from, and that game never ends.
Yeah.
Right. So lots of people say that, like, oh, okay, once I have this much money in the bank, I'll be able to relax and I'll be able to just like be myself. But once I have a partner, once I have a loving partner, I'll love myself. No. It doesn't work that way, right?
Yeah.
How you are when you start is how you're going to be the whole ride through.
Yeah.
So if you're never satisfied with yourself, no matter how much you win, and you feel like, oh, I don't deserve to be here, it's because that is what you're requiring. That is how you're motivating yourself to do the work that needs to be done on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
So that's what needs to be changed. If you never change that,
Yeah.
then you'll always feel like an imposter. And it doesn't matter if we double your win rate, quadruple your hourly, it's not going to matter. You're always going to feel that way, as long as this is how you motivate yourself.
Yeah, that's really good. I really like that. Yeah, it's good to just that's a big point of just broader in life, I think, especially in honestly in Western societies. It's very cultural to give this idea that once you achieve X, that is where happiness lies. Like, that is where success lies. That is where, and for those people who are playing poker, believing that like they'll hit that moment when, I know for a lot of tournament players chasing like the tournament dream, they want that public recognition of their peers and of the community, and of just like, oh, I am a great tournament player. And they believe at that moment they will be satisfied. There was a really funny moment on one of my first meditation retreats where I noticed I was sitting, meditating, trying to be present, and I was planning my next meditation retreat. and it's like, it's very funny. That's how, and even I've had moments winning too, where that's immediately when you practice that type of response to a situation, right? You can find yourself winning a tournament, and all you're thinking about is the next one, or how am I gonna when is this next moment gonna bring me the same level of satisfaction? And anyway. Cool. Well, I think that is a good amount of questions. I don't want to take up too much of your time, Jason. I really appreciate this. I think the channel really appreciates it as well. Do you have any parting thoughts for us? Anything you'd like to say? Or
no, just that I love poker. Poker has been the core pillar of my life for most of my life now. And it can be so amazing and rewarding, and it can also be like completely demoralizing and horrific at certain points. And so what I would say is that always just keep note of just like who you are, and what you believe in, and what you stand for, and why you're doing this, and really feel it, and take that with you through each part of the process. And that's what can get you through the hard times, and that's what will allow you to actually feel satisfied and happy in the good times, is that you know who you are. And it's a great training ground to find out who you are if you don't know who you are, and that can translate out into the world as well. But it's just an amazing game. I love it so much. I love still being part of this community, even as I play less and less these days. But
awesome.
Tremendous game.
Awesome. Well, great. Thanks, guys, for coming and watching. This will be, of course, posted. I'm also going to post it on my YouTube channel. But yeah, thanks for all, Jason. Thanks again. And I'll see you guys soon. All right. Appreciate